What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Mike Sports Podcast Show. Happy Fourth to everybody. Hope everyone had a good Fourth of July weekend. Uh, it was hot. Everyone staying cool, enjoying the fireworks, etc., family time, cookouts. Um, I certainly had a good time this weekend. But talking sports, a whole lot went down. We're going to talk about a variety of things on the NBA front with roster moves, trades, specifically the Boston Celtics trading Jalen Brown to the Philadelphia 76ers for Paul George, two first round picks, two second round picks. I was completely shocked, completely shocked. The fact that Boston traded Brown to the Sixers. In division rivalry between the two teams, history between the two teams, words exchanged between the two teams. I mean, Jalen Brown just got finished talking about Joel Embiid being a flopper. Now he's teammates with the flopper. Just a weird transaction. Several things that kind of just caught my attention. One, Boston fans are livid. Now, just looking at the reaction, of course, and I get it. I understand why. Um, but I mean, the insults that were thrown to Paul George, who I still feel believe at his age, I believe 35, 36 years old, is still a serviceable player. I mean, he's still solid. I think he could give you at least 15, 16 a game. Uh, but he's not a bag of chips. He's not as washed up as people think they are. Think that he is. I think he's still serviceable vet, serviceable player, um, and could be useful and bossful in Boston. So I thought that was just weird to insult Paul George like that. I think he comes in this season with a huge chip on his shoulder and has an opportunity in a winning culture in Boston uh, to prove himself. And this could be his last hoorah uh, in Boston. And so um, I think in regards to Jalen Brown being traded to Boston, your rival, traded to Philly, your rival, um, who being a Celtic player, you hated Philly. Now you're being traded to the team that you hated for so long. There's got to be an adjustment in a uh, weird, just a weird adjustment. I guess you, a kind of awkward, a little bit. But beyond that, I mean, the rivalry between these two teams just got real, and I'd say not only between Philly and Boston, but also with New York, the New York Knicks as well. I mean, these three teams intertwined with each other. The history between these three teams is going to be a lot of ESPN going back and forth, televising their games. They're probably going to be the most televised games this season between these three, for sure. But the rivalry just got real within that division. A lot of it has been said about Jalen Brown and like, why did this happen? Why did Brad Stevens do this move? And I could see it both ways. In one way, Brad Stevens could be a genius for making this move, and he could be an absolute failure um, for making this move. Um, I've for for the longest I felt like Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum play pretty much the same position. It would eventually be split. They really don't have a front court back to the basket guy. And Jalen Brown was somewhat that guy, when they take advantage of mismatches and opportunities. The same, I guess you could say, with Jason Tatum, but Tatum was more of a face-up shooter. Jalen Brown would take you in the post from time to time, uh, no matter who was guarding him, and and do his work down there. But when I look at this trade, I think what it says, because there's the analytics part, there's the financial part, and there's the eye test. And I just think that when you're not worth what your expected salary will be, you become tradable. Jalen Brown signed one of the richest salaries contracts in NBA history, and I just think he became tradable based on analytics, which is really petty. When you think about it, you look at he was a top 5 player in the NBA, MVP candidate. You don't trade players like that. But according to their analytics, they made the decision to trade him. And then, after his comments about it being a favorite season, I don't really look too deep into that. I don't think he was looking to insult Jason Tatum with those comments. And I really don't think Jason Tatum was insulted by those comments. Um, and I mean, unless he comes out and says it, my opinion is they just looked at analytics and they looked at JB's salary and they said, this is the opportunity to trade him. He just led the team without Jason Tatum. What can we get in exchange? Thinking about the future and the rebuild or revamp or whatever you want to call it of the Boston Celtics for the future going forward. How can we maintain some of the assets that we have developed that made JB's season one of the best? Because the team truly did galvanize around each other and did improve. The others did improve, those players that were around him. So, how do we maintain those players and keep Jalen Brown? And I just think Brad looked at that and said, you know what? Maybe it is time to cut ties with Jalen Brown. We couldn't get Giannis. That was option A. Option B was to trade him to whoever made the best offer that made financial sense to them. But I think the lesson that we can glean from this is that when you're not worth your expected salary, you become tradable. And teams feel like they can win without you, even when you might be the best on the team. So you might have to exceed, if you're that player, you might have to exceed your salary evaluation each year. We saw pretty much the best of Jalen Brown. His salary probably would not, he would probably not meet his salary next season next to Jason Tatum, and they get the same value, if that makes sense. And I mean, it's almost better if you just take a discount or just make sure you have a no trade clause in your contract. Um, but that's just my opinion. That's just my thoughts. That if you don't meet your contract evaluation according to analytics, then you're tradable. And owners are always going to make decisions based on just how they feel and based on their financials. And there's been a lot of talk about the second apron, luxury tax, this, that, and the third. So, uh, the goal of a businessman is to make money. So, how as much money as possible. That is. Um, so I don't know, but it's gonna be fun to watch. Jalen Brown in the 76er uniform, Jason Tatum, Paul George teamed up together. It's gonna be an interesting mix. Um, Kendrick Perkins, he went on record and said this is one of the dumbest trades in NBA history. The Boston fans, of course, they're livid. And I think about this statement that Perkins made, one of the dumbest trades in NBA history, and I almost think about the trade. And I think about the trade between Luka Doncic and Anthony Davis. And so I'm thinking, maybe the dumbest trade might have been the Lakers trading for Luka. And I'm interested, fans. I mean, have you thought about that for a second? I mean, AD hasn't been the most healthy. He was a defense. He's kind of like a defensive anchor. He is eventually moved, to Washington. But for the Lakers, if the Lakers just stayed pat with LeBron, AD, and they just added a center, which is what all they were asking for during that time, and just grab some shooters. They already had Reeves. I mean, your big three is kind of right there. What if it was just Reeves, LeBron, AD, and a rising center? You got um, Reddick as your coach. So what if they just played that out? We'll never know. But just a thought. You know, maybe the Lakers made a mistake in Luka Doncic being the face of the Lakers, especially now that LeBron has said, "I'm not. I've chosen not to return to the Lakers." We'll get in that later on in the podcast. For Philadelphia, though, moving on from Maury has been one of the best decisions that the franchise has made. Grancy, since he's been hired, he's drafted Lebarian Philon Jr., rookie. I think he's a solid point guard. A lot of players, a lot of teams were looking at him. Then they signed Dean Wade from Cleveland, traded Paul George for two firsts and 2 seconds, which could be, they're good, solid pickups. Good solid picks, building for the future. Joel Embiid's not going to be there forever. You already got Maxi and Edgecomb there. That's going to be probably emerge as one of the best backcourts in the NBA next year. So Mike Granzy's already done a spectacular job. Looking at their starting lineup, Maxi, Edgecomb, Jalen Brown, Dean Wade, who's Dean Wade is an underrated player at a stretch forward position. And then you got Embiid down there in the post. If he's healthy enough, at least during the playoffs, that's a pretty solid lineup going for the playoffs and they compete for a championship. And then when you look at the Boston Celtics, you look at Derek White, solid. Peyton Pritchard, they're really looking for him to improve basically each and every year. They're Boston, I feel like they're really betting that Peyton Pritchard is going to be a huge, huge contributor going forward. And then you got Jason Tatum, and you hope that his health continues to improve. Some injuries tend to linger, and leg injuries, man, they could be a problem. Achilles, calf, I mean, hamstring, anything can take you out or take you down after surgery. Your body changes, everything changes when you have a surgery. Your body changes completely. So you just hope that Jason Tatum can stay healthy. You hope that Paul George can stay healthy. He's had multiple injuries throughout his career. And then Boston Boston signs Mitchell Robinson. Uh, so he's like your defensive anchor. Definitely not a back to the basket player, but uh, plays good defense, good rebounding. Um, can catch lobs here and there. So he's a good solid pickup as well. I mean, and that's why the whole Knicks. That's why the New York Knicks and that whole rivalry, that triangle between the Knicks, Boston, and Philly is kind of huge there, in my opinion. Continuing with these free agency signings, we saw the Lakers. They make a move and they acquire Walker Kessler from Utah for unprotected first round picks in 2031 and 2033, first round swaps in 2028 and 2030. And he will sign a 4-year, $130 million deal with the Lakers. Kessler is really interesting. They swung and missed on Aiton, who they traded to Washington for Hardy, and I think Hardy is a good, solid player pickup for the Lakers. And then the Lakers also drafted the player from Baylor, who I really liked. I can't think of his name right now, but Cameron Carr. Man, Cameron Carr, he's doing his thing in summer league. I wish the Grizzlies grabbed him, but Kessler is an interesting name. They're really putting hedging their bets on Kessler being better than Aiden, and he might be better than Aiden. Um, some interesting comments, of course, by Stephen A. saying that Luca, Reeves, and Kessler being the highest paid players and probably arguably your best, your max type players, um, that they don't have a chance. Um, really unnecessary comment saying that three white guys can't be your best players on the team, and that a majority black team will look at that like, you know, we're better than them, blah blah blah, like they have some psychological advantage. Uh, whatever. I think it was an unnecessary comment, but I think looking at just Kessler as a player, um, I don't think he's 100. Maybe he's $130 million worth. Maybe. I think Zach Edey is better than Kessler. I think he's better than Kessler. I think next time Edie's contract comes up, it's going to be north of 130 million. Uh, but when the time comes, we'll see how that goes. But either way, it's a solid pickup for the Lakers, and the Lakers going to look very interesting. I think they offensively pose They got a really good offense. I mean, all around, um, offensively and defensively, I think the Lakers are going to be pretty solid next year. Um, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Hopefully, again, health is wealth, and the Lakers can stay healthy throughout the entirety of the season, or at least going to the playoffs healthy. Because I mean, losing Reeves and Luca pretty much at the end of the season, uh, even though they were able to defeat the Houston Rockets without KD, the first at the start of the series, um, it play makes a difference. If you're injured, you can't play during the most part of the season. Your chances to win championship dwindle quickly. On the Grizzly news, it's been reported the Grizzlies and Contavious Caldwell Pope are exploring ways to part, whether through trade or making him a free agent or waiving him, buying him out. Um, I believe his deal was like a $20 million deal. I think eventually he gets either bought out or they try to trade him, but I think KCP probably finds himself on the Miami Heat. I think that's a good fit. I think he'd be a good fit for the Miami Heat. Uh, Interesting to see what the future holds for him and what the Grizzlies decide to do with his contract. The Grizzlies weren't finished though. They traded Santi Aldama to the Dallas Mavericks for AJ Johnson, a protected 2030 Warriors first round pick and two future second round picks. So just moving on, I guess eliminating everybody that was in the next generation Grizzlies era. Uh, Trading Aldama. I'm glad they traded Aldama, to be honest. I really didn't like his defense. I thought he was a poor defender. I think the crazy thing, and I wouldn't say it's amazing, but to get first round picks and second round, two second round picks, that's pretty solid. That's pretty solid, especially in to get AJ Johnson, who is an interesting prospect as well. Um, you could call him maybe another version of Cameron Carr. Uh, Similar build, similar size, uh, similar abilities. Uh, but for Santi Adama to garner first round pick and two future second round picks, for Ja to accumulate absolutely no picks at all, that's heavy. That says a lot. So shout out to Adama. He gave us some really good years. He really did, and developed in our system, and we were able to get some compensation for him. And OG, but still doing it. Mike Conley, he's returning, and for his 20th season. Shout out to Mike, former Grizz, going to the Boston Celtics, adding some more point guard depth and experience to that crew, to that team. Mentioned already, Mitchell Robinson he agreed to a 3-year, $47 million deal with the Boston Celtics as well. Uh, the Knicks just simply not able to hold on to that to re-sign Robinson. The Knicks counter that and they save 47 million to sign Andrew Drummond, another solid pickup from Philly. Hey, from Philly. Remember that rivalry we talked about, that triangle, to a 3.9 million deal, $9 deal 1 year with the New York Knicks. So Drummond to the Knicks, solid pickup, serviceable player, just like Paul George, serviceable player. Mentioned the Blazers. I mentioned in the previous podcast that, when you trade for John Morant and you already have Drew Holiday, you got Scoot, you got Dame, you already have like a really nice, pretty nice backcourt, crowded backcourt. You thought that for sure they was going to make a run at Jalen Brown, but it was reported that Portland weren't actively pursuing Jalen Brown, and they did believe that Damian Lillard, Drew, and Sheldon Sharp and Scoot Henderson can coexist. I'd like to see it. On paper, though, Drew, he's a champion, all defensive team multiple times. Dame, he's an all star, one of the best shooters in the NBA. He's an icon and the face of the Portland Trailblazers. Ja, all star, all NBA, highly popular, some of the best shoes in the game. And then you got Denny Advija, Adija. I don't know if I pronounced his name right, but that trade from Washington, he was an all star last year. So you have arguably you got at least three all star players on your team, and an all defensive player on the team, and you're building around that core uh, five, those core five players, and they look really good on paper. They may win you 40 plus games, but when the playoffs come, they look more like a first round exit. And it looks like a really fun backcourt, Dame Lillard and John Morant. But is there really a guarantee that John Morant starts? Is Drew Holiday coming off the bench? Are we gonna are the Portland Trailblazers going to stunt the growth of Scoot? Are they gonna, what about Sheldon Sharp? He's a young player. Some interesting decisions that their new coach is gonna have to make going into the season. But they'll be fun to watch. As far as the future goes, as far as John Morant, because he's doing an extension in about a year or two from now. Will Portland grant an extension, or are they going to look at Scoot Henderson? Which one are you going to do? What about Danny Adija? Adv- what about Danny? I just call him Danny. I'm not really sure or positive or optimistic that Ja is going to get that extension. This is, though, however, an opportunity, a 1 year opportunity for Ja to show his value. Nike gets to protect their asset with Nike being right around the corner or right in the backyard of Portland. Not only that, I think the re-imaging is already starting to begin. Um, Ja Morant decided to change his number from 12 to 1. So It'll be an interesting season, and an entertaining season for NBA fans. Uh, with Ja and Dame potentially being a starting backcourt. Chicago Bulls have been making some moves. They signed Norman Powell. They got Josh Giddey at point. Montas Bazelas, Caleb Wilson, and they also got Nick Claxton. This team pretty much is in rebuild mode. I don't know if they make the playoffs next year, but um, starting with Norman Powell, hopefully Norman Powell and Caleb Wilson can be a 1-2 punch for them going forward. Free agent Kelly Oubre signed a 2-year, $17 million deal with Indiana Pacers, a team that we're really not talking a whole lot about is Indiana. Indiana Pacers, their odds of reaching the finals was pretty high up there at the end of the season. Halliburton's coming back. You got Siakam. You got Zubac. They're going to be a interesting team to watch. Houston, the Rockets. They signed Marcus Smart, and just looking at their team to get it healthy, Steve Adams and Fred Van Fleet is going to be healthy again as well. There's some speculation though that Fred Van Fleet will be moved. I don't know how true that is. I think that would be a mistake by the Rockets. Although I would love to see Fred Van Fleet in a Grizzly uniform as the lead guard. I just don't see that realistically happening or that trade potentially happening. I mean, maybe, if you trade Caldwell Pope to Houston, maybe contractually that will work. But Houston also re-signed Eason, and the Houston Rockets also traded Dorian Finney-Smith and 3 second-round picks to the Charlotte Hornets. But I mean, looking at Houston, you add experience, and Houston says, "Hold on, OKC. Hold on, San Antonio. Hold on, Lakers. We're in the West too." So I mean, Durant, Marcus Smart, Fred Van Fleet, Amen Thompson, Sengun still there. Eason, they resigned. Steve Adams comes back healthy. Houston got a solid squad. They got a solid squad. Nobody's talking about them, but they could be making that comeback. Off season is still young though. A lot of changes can happen between now and October. Speaking of the Spurs, free agent forward Tobias Harris agreed to a 2-year deal, $31 million deal to go to the Spurs. That's a solid veteran pickup. Tobias, he's had his spurts here and there where he's been extremely valuable during the playoffs and throughout the season. So pairing him next to Wemby is a solid move, a solid back to the basket face up player, 3-and-D player, good forward uh, for the Spurs. Good solid pickup. Back to the Lakers, they signed Quentin Grimes, 4 year, $60 million deal. It was a good, solid defensive player. Still, developing offensively, but he's getting there. He's getting better, showing his value. Um, I believe he spent a good amount of time working with Penny during the offseason. Colin Sexton also signed with the Lakers on a 2 year deal, $19 million deal. There is absolutely no way I feel like Bronny is going to be in any rotation with the Los Angeles Lakers. And uh, shoot, we'll get to that. We'll probably talk about that later. But as I said before, the Lakers, they have a good they're putting together a good combination of offense and defense, and just looking at their roster, just a whole lot of effort uh, on this team, kind of cleaning house in a sense. But the pressure is squarely on Luca. LeBron was the third option last year, and now everything is centered around Luca. I say it for the longest that I felt like Luca and Joker from Denver were gonna eventually link up, and become teammates. Kessler kind of killed that vibe. Uh, but it's Luca's team, and LeBron was the third option, but he was the star of that team. He wore the crown. He was the face of that franchise for that team, for the Lakers. And so, can Luca do the same? Honestly, it's going to be kind of weird seeing LeBron not in the Laker uniform. Certainly not ideal, but it's going to be a little weird seeing LeBron not in a Laker uniform. Can Luca handle being the star of that team? Because the bulletproof vest is off. LeBron took all those being on the Lakers. Now it's really all on Luca and Austin Reeves, both of them, but mostly on Luca because he's the best player on the team. At least viewed that way. Defensively, of course, he still has question marks. LeBron should be retiring a Laker, and that's just my opinion. And I think the fact that he's not, I'm convinced that he just simply wasn't valued enough as a Laker. Even though he brought a championship, I don't think if LeBron is saying I just want to be happy while saying I don't want to be a Laker, kind of it kind of implies that he wasn't happy as a Laker. At least last season. But um, we'll see what LeBron decides to do going forward with his future. Where will he play next season? Rich Paul kind of exposed the spreadsheet, and Rich Paul, is a very smart agent, having 10 teams on the spreadsheet while talking to Max Kellerman on their podcast of Boston, Philly, Cleveland, Denver, Minnesota, New York, San Antonio, Miami, Golden State, and Dallas as the teams that are listed. So if we break it down, I don't believe he's going to Boston. No, I don't believe he's going to Philly. Cleveland is interesting, but I interesting from the standpoint of Bronny. The Lakers have played two summer league games, and I don't believe Bronny's played. I know for sure Bronny didn't play the last. Um, has it played in summer league? Why is that? Why isn't Bronny, who can we say he came into the league or he was just brought into the league by his dad as a favor? Why is he playing summer league for the Lakers, who promised to develop him and track his progress? Like, LeBron saying that I'm not returning to the Lakers, that's the same for Bronny as well, that he's not returning also. Seems like if you appeal and you make it a place for Bronny to be on your team, then you pretty much have convinced LeBron that this is where I'm going. And then he can, I mean, hey, Bronny his own man. LeBron can make his own decisions. But just makes you think. I think Cleveland is a possibility, but this would be the third time. And, it's been there, done that. There's really nothing new there. I mean, if anything, him going to Cleveland could be more of a distraction, but still, Cleveland's going to be competing for a championship with Mitchell, Harden, Allen, and Mobley. Harden, he wants a new deal, and no surprise that a deal has not been announced, of course, until LeBron and until LeBron decides what he's going to do. Um, Denver, I don't see LeBron in Denver. Minnesota with Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball, Gobert and McDaniel. That sounds fun, but I just don't see him in. I don't see him in Minnesota. I don't see that happening. New York, I've said it before that LeBron, he should have requested the trade to New York last season, which meaning he would have a ring right now. He would have 5 rings if he. I mean, you go into the season and you're the third option. Then Rich Paul reveals that if the Knicks didn't win, the Knicks will be the front runner to sign them this season. Hmm. I really think LeBron had an opportunity, if he signed with the Knicks this year or last year, to have on your resume 53 years vacant, New York Knicks finally win a ring, and it's because LeBron James leads their team to the championship. Greatest of all time. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. Now, if you ask me, I really think um, LeBron should go to San Antonio. LeBron, if he wants to win a championship, he should sign with San Antonio. handing the keys of the NBA to Wembanyama. Just imagine sold out NBA arenas, the money that the revenue, the fanfare it would generate. LeBron James, Victor Wembanyama, the future and a legend on the same team together. LeBron closing out his career in San Antonio as a Spur. I mean, championship favorites, the appreciation of the fans, the symbolic passing of the torch to the best player in the world in Victor. And you know, the crazy thing is, the East is extremely deep next year and very, very, very good. Whereas the West is pretty much maintained its regular standing. I mean, there's the Spurs and there's OKC and nobody else. And the Lakers. I guess we get throw the Lakers in it. Could say Denver, but I mean they pretty much put everybody on the trading block except Joker and Watson, who they've yet to re-sign. And to be honest, nothing about Watson's game to me is just so spectacular and so great. But they value him. So, you know, if that's how they feel, then that's how they front office feel. Whatever. But the Spurs and LeBron, to me, that fits and that makes the most sense. I mean, sold out arenas, home, away. I mean, this is the move. San Antonio. He could ride off in the sunset with Steph and Dre. But I mean, I really think that that is kind of overhyped because I mean they did play together at Team USA, so it's not like a dream deferred. They did actually play together for a whole for the summer, and they brought championship gold. Go Team USA, FIFA World Cup soccer. They did bring gold during the Olympics, so you know him playing with Dre. I think Draymond, you know, he just wants a brand new deal. Maybe feels underappreciated. I feel like, man, Draymond, you know, you got um, the Rook from Michigan coming in. He's balling out. He's putting a lot of pressure, I'd say, on Draymond. You know, Lindenborg has a lot of real estate in in Draymond's mind. I think they may use Lindenborg a lot more offensively as opposed to Draymond. Just my thoughts. This is my opinion. Not saying that Draymond isn't helpful at all on offense. I mean, he facilitates the offense for Steph. He's like a point forward, very solid defensive player. But when we look at the numbers, I mean, he's an 8-8. He's an 8-8 player. 8 points, 8 rebounds, 2, 3 steals a game. Solid defender, all defensive player, respect, champion. but I think he just wants a new deal. You got Jimmy Butler on the mend. He wants to stay. Has been told he's not going to be traded, and that might be true. I don't think AD is going to be traded from Washington. I think Washington, they want to stay competitive. I think Washington is tired of losing. They see an opportunity with AJ, Trey Young, Trey Johnson, Sar. They got some players they're building around. Now, at the trade deadline, that might be a different story for AD, but right now I don't see that trade happening. AD being traded this offseason to the Warriors, and then LeBron following suit. But still could happen. I don't see it happening, but still could happen. Or in regards to LeBron, we could see him just signing with the Cavs on a 1 day contract to retire as a Cavalier. He could just say, you know what, I'm happy just retiring. And maybe they do sign, and maybe Cleveland signs Bronny to a deal. But I believe the smart move for LeBron James is to be a San Antonio Spur. I would like to see that happen, just as a unbiased NBA fan. On to the Grizzlies, and then we'll wrap this up. Grizzlies look good in summer league. First game, I know it was just the first game, but they look pretty good, pretty solid in summer league. Um, when I go to X and I look at some of the opinions of some Grizzly fans still wanting to trade for a point guard. Um, AJ Mitchell has been thrown out a lot, but just trading for a veteran point guard. Uh, I mean, I think Fred Van Fleet will be a nice, solid pickup. I think Drew Holiday could be a nice, solid pickup. And while they're older, they fit in the pattern they climb in is forming, which is toughness, leadership, and defense. And I don't know, kind of naive to think that Drew Holiday and Fred Van Fleet will want to come to a young, up and coming team. Various, different opinions on Ty Jerome and Scottie Pippen Jr. I believe in Scottie Pippen Jr. and Ty Jerome. I believe they can be the lead guard, and they should continue the youth movement. But as far as what Kleiman has shown us a pattern of, he likes high potential and high potential prospects that he can buy at a low cost, and veterans that fit what they're trying to build. But going into next season, again, I'll read. I'm gonna double down on it, and I believe in Ty Jerome. I mean, he's 6'5" and he's a shooter. I mean, you gotta have him. I think he can be a lead guard. Scottie Pippen Jr. has shown in the past when Ja was out, when he was hurt, that he can be the lead guard as well and contribute to winning. Javon Small, he's looked solid. We got Cam Spencer, we got Walter Clayton, who's this is a big summer for Clayton in summer league. Hopefully he can get healthy and back on the court to prove himself. But I think guard wise, the fact that we didn't draft a point guard says a lot about the confidence that the coaching staff and front office have in this group of Small, Scottie Pippen Jr., Ty Jerome, Cam Spencer, and Clayton. And AJ Johnson, like I said before, he looked like a nice project, nice prospect, as well as the guy that we drafted from BYU, probably one of the best shooters in the draft. Older guy, but still a lot of talent with the torn ACL. Will be back next year, most likely. Um, so the Grizzlies are in rebuild mode, but I do believe that the Grizzlies will surprise a lot of people and put a better record than what they are projected to put together. And I think a whole lot of it is going to come down to just the mindset. Cedric Coward at the end of the season in his um, post in his exit interview, talked about developing as a leader, and I think he'll do that. And then Cam Boozer, we already know, he's a rookie vet. I'm going to end this podcast with a quote that he gave after the game. I believe this was after, or maybe it was before, but here's a quote from Cam Boozer on becoming the Grizzlies' centerpiece. He said, "The first thing you have to do is show up and show that you deserve it. That takes work. That takes showing up every day and doing the right things." And that's how he's absolutely right. So I think from a leadership standpoint, might be the best leadership, young leadership grouped team that's been grouped together. And definitely with a lot of potential. I think it's going to be a fun season. I'm not going to be a Debbie Downer doubter at all as far as the season goes. Yes, we're going to have our losses. It's going to be frustrating. It's going to be a long season, but I believe that if we can stay healthy and we can play consistent basketball, play together, Boozer and Edie, that's a really nice combo. Ty Jerome, Cedric Coward, it's a really nice backcourt. Gigi, if he can keep on developing at the three, solid player. He's been in the system the longest. Been in the Grizzly, longest tenured Grizzly now on the team. So it's gonna be a big year for Gigi. And I think he's gonna live up to the hype and the fanfare that we give him. The one thing that we as fans have to do is we gotta come together. We gotta show our support for these young guys. They're young. They're gonna make mistakes. They're gonna lose games this season that they should win. But if we're true fans, we're gonna get behind this team. We're gonna show up in the good and the bad times, and we're going to support them as they work this thing out and build a new era, a new rebuild a new culture. I think we had the right pieces in place. We got Stewart, Isaiah Stewart, in there. We got a solid locker room. I think we don't have any more distractions. John is no longer, on the team. We don't have to answer any of those questions anymore. Shouldn't have to answer those questions going into next season. Um, we got some good prospects lined up on the bench, that we can look at and lean on, potentially. So go Grizzlies, go Grizzlies. From the NBA perspective, parity is king. I really like what the Eastern Conference is building and what it's looking like. Probably in the next podcast, you'll look at the East and the West. Uh, Even though it's still early in the off season, just looking at the current moves that have been made already, how playoff basketball looks, for the East and the West, and again, man, the Eastern Conference looks strong, really, really strong. Um, and maybe it's the Victor Wembanyama effect or the SGA effect. Maybe that's what that is. There's just a migration. I mean, Kawhi goes from the Clippers to Toronto. That's a monumental move. Jalen Brown, Philadelphia. I mean, not Jalen Brown to the Western Conference, but Jalen Brown to Philadelphia. Philadelphia just got stronger. Boston is all on Tatum. It's all on Tatum's shoulders now. You got the New York Knicks, defending champion. You got the Indiana Pacers. You got Halliburton, and just his return from injury, and Siakam and Zubac, and and just a solid team down there. So it's gonna be a lot of fun watching the rest of the offseason, and what how the offseason is gonna look. Summer league is summer league. Really, there's no stock in summer league. I'll just say that everybody plays well in summer league, but once the season starts and rotations shorten, all those players that we talking about in summer league that impressed us the most, yeah, it's gonna change. All that's gonna it's gonna change. Darren Peterson, solid first summer league game. Acuff, solid. Cameron Carr, solid during the summer league. We'll see if that continues, going into, um, and even Boozer, solid, solid numbers, solid production. But we'll see if that continues, into, preseason, into the off season, into the new season, next year. But anyway, I'm gonna leave it there. Make sure you subscribe, like, uh, the podcast. Appreciate those that tune in and listen to me dribble about, just my opinions on sports. Going to be talking about football pretty soon as well, preparing for the um, preseason football. We got the St. Jude coming up, this month also. So the World Cup is going on, so that's been fun to watch, and the WNBA as well. Been fun to watch. Um, as that season, there, those progress. WNBA season progresses, and the World Cup progresses as well. But post July 4th, uh, enjoy your week. Stay cool. Until next time, peace. The Mike Sports Podcast Show. Make sure you subscribe. Later.